Hello and welcome to the History of the Picts podcast, episode 7, Brude, son of Maelchon. Maelchon, we're not starting this. The last...
Macon. Just call it Macon. We figured it out. It's Macon. It's Macon.
Macon, right, okay, Macon. The last time we went over the king list and the legend myth era of it, and the early Christianisation of the Picts.
In 563, Saint Columba left his monastery in Ireland and sailed to Britain, according to Bede, to preach the good word to the kingdom of the Picts, of the north. If you remember last week, the southern Picts were already evangelicalised, according to Bede, and by Columba's arrival, Brude had been ruling the Picts for over 8 to 9 years.
An interesting factoid on Brude's father's name is that Macon is a rare, but more interestingly, the same name as the famous Maglocunis. This is some, yeah. Anyway, as King of the Britons of Gwynedd in North Wales, Maglocunis is a Latinisation of Macon and retains its original meaning of princely whelp. That's such an own. Yeah. What's your name?
I don't know what that means though.
My name's princely whelp. I don't think whelp's a compliment.
Yeah,
We're gonna get another 8 comments on how it's actually fart and poop.
A great honour. Is that a great honour or something?
Yeah.
I'd die to be a whelp.
Historians believe that Brude was the son of the Welsh king through a Pictish princess being the mother, as Macon's name is very rare, and he died in 547 when he died to a plague, which correlates the same time frame as Brude's life. So it's possible that this rare chance of another Macon from Pictland, but this name also doesn't appear ever again in the Welsh text. His name is also Maelchon or Maelchon, which is also used to refer to Brude's father.
And I looked it up. Whelp means young boy, or young man, or puppy. So his name could just mean a princely puppy, which is kind of funny to me. So yeah, it's not a compliment. I don't think it's a compliment.
No, I'm thinking called. It kind of like calling him like a naive moron.
I mean, but like, mind a lot of Anglo-Saxon names like Young, like Ashley Young. His name's Young. A guy went, "What's your second name?" "Oh, I don't have one." "You're kind of young, so." Two key events are known for Brude's reign: Columba's visit to Pictland and the first war on record between the Picts and the Scots. And the reason why these two events are also connected is because Columba's HQ was in Dalrata, which means that the man who's writing all the records is going to, take note about the war going on in his land. The Scots are usually seen to have been Irish colonists, but evidence is scarce, and there's some evidence to prove that a lot of the Scots were actually Britons in origin, which we went over in the questions episode. Also, we're maybe going to do a podcast on the Scots, so we're not ignoring a lot of the basic detail about the Dalrata and that right now, but we're just not going to focus on it unless it's important.
Yeah.
So we won't be going into how much each house can muster for war. like we've been talking about at a pub recently. It's
yeah. And another thing is I don't know if this is, I don't know for what reason, but there is just nothing on Dalrata individually. So in Nick Aitchison's book, the Scots kind of play like a background role, and he's kind of like, Dalrata. I think they raised soldiers maybe.
No, but it is quite impressive how relevant they actually are in history until they get one lucky break. Yeah, they're still relevant into that moment.
They get dog walked for like 500 years. The Vikings win one battle, kill everyone, and then you get Alba. And all of a sudden it's super important.
It's like when you look. It's like when you fail every test and like you just pass because the coefficient goes really down.
Dalratan kings began to adopt an aggressive policy, which we will soon see that they will, no doubt, come and regret. Due to the lack of good farmland in Argyll, which led to war with the Picts, in the Irish Annals under the year 559, this entry is written: "Flight of the Scots before Brude, Macon's son, king of the Picts, and the death of Gabrin, son of Domangart." The annalists associated this event with an expedition by King Brude. Domangart and Gabrin were a son and grandson of Fergus MacEirc, who legend and origin may have been a genuine person, kind of like how Hercules may have actually been a real person and it sort of gets diluted, or Achilles. So we don't actually know if Fergus was real. I can't believe we're here already. But Fergus may have been real, he may have not been. After this battle, no further clashes between the Scots and Picts occur, so it's possible that the Battle of 559 was a decisive Pictish victory, which made Brude overlord of Dalrata. Although we can't really conclusively draw that because we're lucky that they ever even write about the battles. They're just like, oh yeah, there was a Hyperborean death
Yeah.
war in 583. Anyway,
Well, if you read,
and that's it.
well, if you read further, you'll see that it was some sort of thing like that because, we'll get to it, but it most likely was some sort of like weird tributary, not a vassal, but like weird tributary like thing like that. But remember back these days, you were a vassal to the king, and when that king dies, you're no longer a vassal because
Really.
because there's an over king's like gone. So
Yeah.
it would have to be a really strong successor to keep that vassal. Now, back to Columba. He had crossed Drumalbin to spread the good word to the northern Picts. Columba was an Irishman of noble birth and could be linked to the powerful O'Neill kings of Northern Ireland. If not for pushing a religious career, he could have been a warrior or maybe even a king, which is, I think, pushing it. We won't go too much into Columba today, but don't worry, it's in the works, as mentioned last week, and possibly he'll have his own standalone episode, either after he dies in the narrative or at the end of the narrative, which I think he
Yeah,
dies in this narrative.
I think we've mentioned like 100 times. Like, there's like four guys who we would just know nothing about if they just
Yeah.
didn't exist in Clumber, and Bede's one of them. Bede dates his mission to the Picts in 565, and this is 2 years after the Saints' arrival in Britain. The conversion was not as simple as like a single event, but a long and arduous journey of preaching to all. The success of his mission laid in the hands of King Brude, and the maintaining of his goodwill of not being picked out, who was at this time still a pagan. Which I think is kind of the funny downfall of most pagan kings is they just don't bother about the Christians, and then suddenly their entire kingdom is Christian and they have to convert. It happens in
I'm sure it'll
Russia
blow
as
over.
well.
I'm sure it'll blow over.
Yeah, it's like, "Great, okay, whatever." Uh, Columbus' first visit to the fortress where Brude was residing in didn't start off great, with Brude refusing to open the gates for him. Undeterred, allegedly, Columbus stood before the gates and made the sign of the cross, at which the gates blew off. Bolts blew off and the gates opened. This is quite tame in terms of miracle and old records, but it highlights that it impressed Brude so much any visitor from Iona was never locked out of the gate. This story, however, probably didn't happen, as a group of Irishmen wouldn't show up unannounced to the fortress of a foreign king demanding entry, and that is the only part of this story which is unlikely to have happened.
Yeah. Irishmen asking to enter a foreign kingdom. Normally they hate foreign kings. If this is me right.
Yeah, I'm sure. We have eyewitness testimony that Columba blew open.
Yeah, it's also the thing too. Like, you just wouldn't come randomly to a king's fortress, especially
Well,
for
I
the
mean,
Picts. How do you know where he is? He moves about a lot.
I don't know. But if you're the guy blowing up gates, I don't think
Yeah.
that's much a barrier to meeting with him.
I can
Yeah, would you
imagine it's
imagine being
Brude.
Brood?
I can
Yeah.
imagine Brude at the gate. Cross, boom! This door's open. Well, I guess you
He's
come
like,
in
okay,
now.
maybe. Yeah, I was
Guess
like,
you-
well, that's a bit awkward, I guess. But come on in.
Well, may as well actually at that point, you know. Just respect the effort. Realistically, what did Brude gain from hearing from Columba? It could be as simple as the old gods offered little and Christianity offered something better politically, or Brude became a believer. But it's also really likely that he never even converted to keep his old metalheads. Was that the word? His old heads, like the old people.
Yeah, unks.
The unks still with him because they were not going to become anything but pagan. But in Europe, Christianity was winning very quickly, and paganism, especially in Britain, was being slapped about. But it is important to note that the Scots, Irish, and Picts, I'm not going to mention the Welsh, I don't know about them, were Christians long before the English were. And Columba baptised many, but there's no clear number and no mention of Brude being baptised.
Yeah, and it wouldn't be the first instance of someone converting to Christianity for their own good, like
Like
Constantine. Constantine has a vision, and then he goes, because he promises to win him the battle if he paints the
Yeah.
like the keel real, and then they win the battle. So, but for whatever reason,
From
Brude did.
records how it is though, Constantine did. It's not
Yeah,
debated that
no, he was
it's not
practicing afterwards.
it's not debated that he was a real Christian in terms of belief, but it's the whole like that story about the painting the
Yeah,
shield may have not basically like may never happen. They may just
his
become a
original his
Christian.
original conversion is not maybe
Well
not the most
known.
altruistic decision that he made at the time. He definitely
Yeah,
was a believer later in life, but I would be curious to know if at the time he was like, yeah,
I
do you know
better.
what? This Jesus guy.
But it probably makes more sense to me. Is like he had the dream and he pointed like maybe something on his shields, like of his
And then
household,
they won. They pulled thing as a
yeah,
victory.
yeah. I doubt he got every soldier to paint the shield because that's quite an arduous task for like 5,000 men. It's probably like his bodyguards. Yeah.
Sire there, we are approaching the battlefield. No. You heard the dream. You heard the dream. Pete described Brude as the most powerful
Wait.
king. Oh,
Sorry. A better version
wow.
of the people converting is the Danish kings.
Oh, they're hilarious.
They
There's one of the
converted.
Frankish kings as well.
Yeah, the Danish king converted because the HRE were kind of like breathing down their necks, going, "Okay, guys, stop attacking Britain, please." It's like this huge empire. It's like, stop attacking Britain, all right? Just you stop right there, boy.
Anyway, after that slight sidetrack, we described Brude as the most powerful king, and this obviously refers that he was, the over king of the Picts, and would have gained this through warfare, threats, and intimidation. Since over kingship wasn't hereditary, I feel like we've said that 100 times now.
Which is still really impressive to me. It's
Yeah. Brude would have wiped out his rivals within about a decade before Columbus' arrival. Brude must have been such a competent warrior that by his death in the 580s, the overlordship of the furthest territories was lost, such as Orkney. The Orcadians would have. I love that. I love that term. Would have most likely saw themselves as Picts. How far Brude's realm actually extended westward is uncertain. Because there's mountains and things, and they didn't it's not like today where there was funny people got on a map and started drawing lines.
yeah.
So the concept of borders is a bit different. Anyway, during his reign, there was the aforementioned war with the Scots in the far west. These areas may have included the Isle of Skye, which is inhabited by the Picts already, with 3 Pictish stones being found there. During these years, Columbus' missionary work becomes the focus of the annals, as mentioned before, since it's churchmen, who write the records. Obviously, that's going to be a priority. As we're doing an episode on Columba, we'll gloss over a lot of this, unfortunately for now. But around now in the timeline, the Picts are becoming more Christian, and the church starts to pop up in and around places.
In 574, King Conall of Dalrata died and was succeeded by his cousin Aidan MacGibrain. I think I've seen these right. A member of the Kintyre dynasty. See, saying the word dynasty with like Kintyre, it's really funny. It's like I'm thinking like Japanese Chinese
Yeah.
dynasty. It's just Kintyre. Columba ordained him as the king of Kinel and Gibran in a ceremony on Iowa. His father was Gibrain, a lot of Gibrains, who was killed in battle of 559 against Brude. King Aidan MacGibrain's ambitions were really high, and he embarked on raids on his neighbours. And it was only a matter of time before he challenged King Brude of Maelchon, son of Maelchon. The challenge came in 580 with an attack on Orkney, which was at this time a petty kingdom who swore fealty to Brude. The challenge was to disrupt relations and to prove that Brude couldn't protect them. And also he conducted a campaign in Stirlingshire against the Meati. It's not the Meati, it's the Maitifi.
They're the same people.
Miathi.
They're sort of like hereditary to them.
Which were probably a tribute-paying client near Strathern.
Straven, I think it is.
Straven? No, it's not Straven. It's not Straven. Straven's got a V in it.
Straven.
Straven's got a V in it.
Yeah. A V in it? No, doesn't he?
It does.
No, doesn't he? I get pure chastised for this when I was going to a
Straven?
Sunday League game. It's Straven, that's what it's pronounced. I'm deadly serious.
That's not Straven, because Nicholas is from Straven, and that's not how it's spelled.
Oh, doxed. You just doxed them. Get doxed.
He's doxed his bank card and stream before. I think it's fine. I'm doing it. It's not. It's Strathern. It's Strathern.
I'd put money on it being Straven.
Strathern. It's Strathern, and it's up near fucking 5.
Straven?
It's near 5.
Oh, right.
You think it's
Oh, I
Straven?
thought you were... Ah, Straven, like, it's also spelled the same way, though.
No, Straven's got a V in it.
Does it?
It's Strathaven. Welcome to History
Oh.
of Scottish Geography podcast.
Well,
And today,
oh,
two
I
idiots
didn't realise that.
argue. Two idiots argue, is it Straven or Strathern?
I can't believe I buzzed that up. Live. Wow,
Right,
okay.
keep going, keep going.
Well,
We can waste more time. Keep going.
Brude died in 584, most likely in battle like a proper Pictish king. His successor was Gartnait, who repulsed a Canel in Gibrain attack deep in Pictland. The battle happened in 598 in Surkinnon. No, it's not going to be Surkinnon. Surchin? Something like
Yeah,
somewhere. Happened
Sachin.
somewhere. And was a major defeat for Aidan. This battle was the last battle against the Picts that Aidan would fight, and as he lost another one of his son, Gurtnate, however, died around 2 years later in the year 600, which coincided with a significant event. The Battle of Degsaston, in which Aidan McGibrain suffered a costly defeat to the northern English kingdom of Bernicia. Shout out my Bernicia lovers, because Bernicia disappeared like in 100 years from now. While campaigning in their territory, King Aethelfrith of Bernicia, whose power base
Ethelfrith,
lay in
I think.
Bamborough, and what would become Northumbria,
It's
was
not. It's
Poland
not.
now.
So it's weird. It's not Bamber. It's Bamber. No, I've watched a TV show and it's Uhtred of Bamber. But no, it's Bebenber. It's Bebenber. No, that's the Norwegian way of saying it. It's Bamber. Bamber Castle. Sorry,
Fuck off.
it's the whole TV show is like I am Uhtred of Bebenbow,
Yeah,
and I will reclaim what is mine. It's
yeah,
Bamber.
that's
Yeah, sorry.
kingdoms. I know it's not kingdom. It's
Yeah,
something like that. It's the Viking one anyway.
yeah. It's
Anyway,
not Bamborough. I think it's Bamborough.
I will continue to pronounce it as Bamborough to further rage bait the Northumbrians. The English had been in Britain for several generations, and the Northern Territory they held consisted of the kingdoms of Deria and Bernicia, each with its own royal dynasty.
I never wrote it down, but the Scots vastly outnumbered the Bernicians in this battle when they got wiped out. But like
Yeah,
always,
this is what we were talking about
it's
earlier.
barely written.
It's remarkable that like Dalriata come back for this. Because see, for the next 200 years, this is basically Dalriatan history. It's just, yeah, they turned up, they get decimated, they become a
And it's
vassal,
weird because obviously
or
from
something like that.
the records we read, they can't field an army bigger than their neighbours, but they still somehow always outnumber their enemies in battle. But
Well, it's because they were
I,
quite efficient at raising their men, though.
yeah, it was.
suppose
I think it was 1 in 5 men could be raised for war, while in like English kingdoms it's like 1 in 9. So they had like
Yeah,
a local superiority in some battles, but
it'd be easy to sort of
it's
gather them.
mental because Aidan, King Aidan, he lost to the Picts, then went I'll go raid England and gets destroyed in Bernicia. It's quite, but like see to me it's more funny. It's that Dalriata don't border Bernicia, so they had to go through the Strathclyde lands, which just doesn't mention it. Or
It's even more
yeah,
confusing.
or they sailed obviously around, but that could imply, not to grasp any straws that no historian ain't done yet, it could imply they also raided through Strathclyde.
Which was, as we will see, will become a frequent event for
Yeah.
Strathclyde.
But it could be really interesting in the history of like Strathclyde were like really big and
Well, because
strong. We just
there's
didn't know.
there's quite a because this happens a few times. There's a few instances where people have to go through Strathclyde to get to places like this. So it kind of, although in a lot of them the Strathclyde Britons go with them, like in at the battle at Brunanburgh, the big one that one of the English Ethel something. I can't. It's really bad. I should remember that because he's one of the great Anglo-Saxon kings, and he beats the Scots and the Britons there. And I think there's someone else there as well.
Was
I
this
think
in the
there's like
nine?
the
Is
Dublin
this like in the
937.
900s? Yeah,
937
937.
is
Yeah,
Battle of
yeah.
Brunanburgh. I think there's like Dublin Vikings there as well, fighting against the
So,
English.
so the battle
And
is, I
there's Strathclyde
think.
Britons
So
and
I think the
there's
battle.
Scots.
Yeah, so the battle I'm thinking of, I think I'm talking about. The only reason I know it competently is because it's in a TV show. It sounds really bad, but it's where the Irish. No,
Athelstan,
I've-
Athelstan fights it.
Ethelstan, yeah, and I think it's also Lordship of the Isles also fight that battle too.
Yep. So it
It's like
is
four
the
kingdoms, but they never outnumbered English, which is like a We won a 1v4, like you didn't win a 1v4. Well, first off, you're not you're not an
Yeah,
Anglo-Saxon.
yeah.
Second of all, it's a one. See the whole 1v4 stuff. It's like what's it, Napoleon and Waterloo. It's like yeah, he fought a 1v7 with you, but like they weren't extremely outnumbered in a lot of battles. They were quite evenly matched.
Bertrand, not to completely derail us, but at Waterloo, I'm pretty sure Napoleon is at least equal with Wellington until the Prussians come.
Yeah, and see, armchair historians off tangent. I'm sorry, guys, but armchair historians go like. Wellington was just like a terrible general. He just defends. What do you want him to do?
Wholly true, wholly true. Welcome to the
Guy,
Wellington Hate Podcast.
guys,
Welcome to the Duke of
Just
Wellington Hate
guys,
Podcast.
Wellington gets a really defensive position and defends it. Why didn't they just run at them?
Wellington's such a fucking nerd. He'd like seen Waterloo like a year before, and he just remembered it. Unbelievable. What a fucking loser. Like, you got life. Who remembers a ridge somewhere? And he's just like, oh yeah, because he does this in Spain. He wins all his battles because he's on fucking ridges. That is great. It's great. He's an
No,
FPL.
no, but it's like people, because people don't understand like war fighting. Go like that's just a weird behaviour. It's like quite cowardice. No, it's not.
He's only up against the greatest
Scottish,
general of that period.
yeah, every Scottish like general like oh, what do we fight? Flat grounds. See that bog? Robert the
Like,
Bruce was a bog fighter for most of the battles he fought.
it's
I don't
incredible.
think from
Like, but the thing is even then, like at Austerlitz, Napoleon is also fighting against a similarly strong position, except the Allies come down off it, and okay, the coalition at Austerlitz was, we are going so far off. Wow, it's pretty bad. But even then, they split the Allied centre and they destroy the coalition army. So it's like it's not as if Wellington being on that ridge was like a, you know, a guaranteed easy victory.
Yeah, so the funny thing is too is we've got an episode planned on war fighting about the Scots and the Picts. We'll do for
Yeah.
both of them because may as well. And
Yeah, I think there's enough to squeeze out.
so we've got to Napoleon from from the Scots being unable to fight the Picts and the neighbours. I don't know how we got to Napoleon from Strathclyde.
No. Anyway,
sorry. In the early 7th century, the English had no border of the Picts. They were separated by the Godwin, the kingdom which contained Lothian, and I'm sure you forgot they even existed. And their citadel was Dunedin, which exists now on what is Edinburgh Castle, which to me just blows my mind how it's like the same location. Godwin's borders came under intense pressure from Bernicia and suffered a great defeat to the English. In the closing years of the 6th century, a British poet who composed a series of heroic verses to honour the Godwin named the poem The Godwin and it went over the events of the battle. And the casualties were severely dramatised. Historians usually say Catreff as the site of the battle. One verse in the Godwin refers to a man called Bubon who may have been a Pict fighting alongside the Britons at Caffrain. He's described as hailing from beyond the Sea of Adieu, which may be the Firth of Forth due to the Welsh term adieu, which equates to Guidi,
no
a
idea.
name applied in Stirling in early historic terms, which I think in most of these battles for like the Strathclyde Britons, like it's just people just show up. I think it's kind of the thing. It's like
Should we pull up?
yeah, Strathclyde King marched by a village, 10 men went, I want some free loot. And then they get wiped out.
By 600 AD, and this is a terrible tragedy, the Britons of Lothian were losing their territory. They were hemorrhaging territory at a rapid pace. The defeat at Kitwraith was more of a pilot episode to the downfall, and with the eventual finale of the Britons and of Godolphin, this only began the timely intervention of the Pictish Wars with the English, who
Wrong. You read it wrong.
began the timer of the eventual. Oh yeah, that makes more sense. Yeah, I it confused me the way it was laid out.
Yeah.
Okay, I get it. This begins the timer for Pictish Wars with what will become Northumbria, who were a far more aggressive neighbour than they'd ever faced since the Romans, and that somehow, by the grace of God, is all for today's episode.
Yeah.
Jesus, I thought we were never going to get here. Uh, we're almost on the 7th century, and for the narrative's sake, we've 2 more centuries to go, and it's only episode 7. To be fair, we did say it was going to be short. We did say it was going to be short. Thank you
And
for listening. Oh,
and to be fair, we did also pad out 2 episodes with the questions
yeah.
and Ninth Legion, which I think Ninth Legion was important to add. Probably should have been
Yeah,
added at the end of the Agricola video, but episode, but
well, to
it
be
was
fair,
interesting, I guess.
I suppose, yeah, it was something, it was.
I thought it'd be longer than 7 minutes long, which I'm quite
Yeah,
annoyed about.
well, to be fair, the Ninth Legion has been like so heavily debated, but for me, I'm gonna get flack for this. I just like don't care. Like, okay, they
Yeah.
went missing. That's terrible. I made an episode on it.
You
Just went,
made you made one on
don't
it?
care.
Did you? Did you? You made the episode?
We were there. We were there.
I
Team
wrote
effort.
as you can tell in this episode that Luke said most of the lines. That's because I wrote 2 episodes in about two
Mate,
hours.
You sent me the script at 1 a.m. You sent me the script.
No, so episode 6, I started at let's say 2 o'clock, and I finished at 6 o'clock, and then he's like on the bus to Aberdeen.
Yeah, got to pick one.
Yeah, he's actually in the fields.
Would you be making the episode, mate? I'm surveying Pickland right now. I can tell you, it looks the same way
Yeah.
it did in the 6th century.
If I'm feeling generous, I might. If I can read the book fast enough, we might do a Columba episode for next time you're seeing this. Not next week. Well, for you guys, next week. For us, it's in 2 weeks. But
Yeah.
if I can plough through the Columba book, we may do a Columba episode. But how it's feeling to me, it might need multiple parts, or we just do one hour-long episode, which
Yeah, because
I'll need to just work on that for a long time.
Yeah. there is. I can't believe somebody managed to pile a book on Columba.
I'm sure most of it's like bead somehow.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the narrative isn't going to be long till it's finished. I give it maybe we've covered about a century an episode, but
Yeah.
the closer we get to the end of the episodes, the more dense. Like so, like for example,
Yeah.
the next episode could be half an hour long. Compared to,
Yep.
well, this might be half an hour long too, but not for the right reasons.
No.
The last episode script was meant to be 16 minutes long, and as you can tell, this is half an hour long, around about. So
Yeah.
we pad it out with some of our insight
Yeah,
and history. So
Some
it's
of our cutting insights, such as I don't care about the disappearance of the Ninth Legion and Wellington was a ridge sitter.
on the podcast on the Picts. So it's, you
Yeah.
get your nice daily dose of everything.
Yeah.
But yes,
Lightning.
that is all for this week. Thank you all for listening. Rate us 5 stars on Spotify or Apple Music or whatever you're on. If you're on YouTube, leave a like and leave 12 comments. See you later, guys. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening.